Hello, this is Pat Lynch, and you are listening and watching As the World Turns or Burns, our political discussion that we cover things both domestic, worldwide, and all points in between, and also along the way make some highly questionable predictions. With me, as always, is
Kieran O'Keefe,
Brendan Connell,
and behind the board for a second time is...
I'm Lily Williams.
Oh, she's improving that delivery. She's getting better each and every time. But welcome, Lily. All right. Iran. Okay, we're in week 3. Is that
something like that?
Yeah, something like that. And kind of to kick things off. Obviously, there's kind of it's just high. It's obviously we're in a polarized political environment, so the sides have taken their respective sides. MAGA Republicans support Trump in his effort. All Democrats are vehemently opposed. There's independents to kind of, I think, swing more anti-war at this point. The fractions you thought coming up within MAGA hasn't really been anything measurable, but with what we have right now, it's obviously there's the economic ramifications. We're now starting to Arkansas is a low cost gasoline state, but what we're at like $3.35, something like that. So call it up 40 cents. I think in some higher tax states you're probably seeing a lot worse. Across the globe, it's creating a much bigger energy situation, and it's just kind of where we're at. This wasn't the first bombing of Iran, which was just a strategic strike at some nuclear facilities, and then it was over. Or Venezuela, you go kidnap the leader, and then it's over. Here, I guess we're in a war. So just turn it over to both of you guys. Karen, what's your assessment as far as where we are right now and where this is headed?
I mean, it's hard to tell. It seems like the Trump administration didn't plan this out all too well. He seems almost surprised by the Iranians trying to cut off the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, I know more domestically than I know internationally. I'm not an expert in Iranian politics at all, but I will restate that I am skeptical that the U.S. and Israel are going to be able to knock out the Iranian regime just through airstrikes. I think doing that without ground troops is probably going to be pretty hard. Domestically, I don't think it's good for Trump. You can see that it's opened up a little bit of divide in the MAGA movement. I actually think one of the predictions I made last time has so far been proven right, which is I said that initially it would get a little more popular with the Republicans because even if they were instinctively opposed to it, once Trump said he was for it, people would be, oh yeah, sure, that's a good idea. Right. But that's gonna go down. That's my next prediction. It's gonna go down in the coming weeks because people will get tired of the war. It seems like 7 Americans have died or something like that.
12.
But I've heard it's actually maybe even higher than that. And there's been some I don't know, dishonest reporting by the Pentagon potentially. But domestically, I don't think it's good for Trump because the one thing that I have felt all along that could actually really hurt his popularity is a bad economy. And people hate high gas prices. That was a thing that Biden had to deal with that was really harmful to him. He was dealing with higher gas prices for the first part of his administration. People never really forgot it. And gas prices are shooting up. I mean, not an expert on oil, but there's some talk of oil maybe even being able to get to like $200 a barrel, which would mean really high gas prices. J.D. Vance was going out a couple days ago saying, well, we don't have as bad as other countries, which is not what Americans really care about. They don't care if Europeans are paying more than we are for gas.
Yeah, and I have to jump in. Producer Jayson chastised me because I was using Landman as my guide of how oil prices, and it turns out that it's very accurate. It is accurate, Producer Jayson. So he's in the shadows somewhere here. So we got him off mic.
He's in timeout.
Hey, who owns CBS? Who owns CBS?
The Ellisons?
Yeah, exactly. Don't listen to them.
Okay.
They're
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah.
I just had to clarify that. Continue, please.
Yeah, gas prices could be Trump's undoing because he Ike has been fortunate that during his first term, and then so far during this term, gas prices are relatively low, helps him build up this image to some Americans as being good, that Trump's good for the economy.
Yep.
Now gas prices are way higher than they've ever been under Trump, and they're probably not going to come down, even if Trump stopped the war today, which would be hard because Iran would also have to agree to stop. Even if you stop today and you reopen the strait, gas prices probably still go up for a bit longer before they start coming back down. And if that's the case, I mean, Americans are going to be upset. Americans don't want to pay a lot of money for gas. And it's not just going to affect gas. It's going to affect your food costs because it takes gasoline to get the food to the grocery store. So there are all
diesel's
these...
gone up higher than just regular gas, which is all around transportation. And then fertilizer is, there's choke points there. So
there's that too.
Yeah, it's going to affect crops and you know, and think of plastics. I mean, it's amazing how much oil is tied into just the whole, you know, to everything that we buy.
And it's not super scientific yet because it's still just unfolding. But you know, Nate Silver has that running aggregate of all the polls, and right now Trump is at the lowest he's ever been. He's at about 40% exactly, which he has a high floor, but 40% is still not good. And he was more at maybe 42 or so a couple weeks ago, so you can sort of see a 2-point drop maybe. And at some point, I don't know where the threshold is, but I would guess somewhere in the 30s. If you got him down to maybe 35, I think you'd start to see some Republicans run away from him and get more criticism because you'd have more who were concerned about, who previously thought they were in a safe seat, who are now worried, oh, wait, I might actually lose this because of some of Trump's policies. But that remains to be seen.
And the midterms are not too far away either.
Right.
So I think Trump's overplayed his hand. You know, there was a time, so like go back 3 weeks before this started, the U.S. had a lot of leverage because with the situation with Maduro, you had to start taking the U.S. threats as credible.
Seriously. Yeah.
And that, to me, was a big difference than, let's say, the Obama administration, which was in the shadow of the war in Iraq and war in Afghanistan. There was a lot of fatigue amongst the public about getting stuck in these costly wars. In fact, maybe that was the whole reason we get Trump in 2016, because that's what he initially campaigned on. No more costly forever wars. There was an off-ramp as well in those negotiations that happened on neutral territory. And apparently, what was it, one of the diplomats from Oman that said that the terms of the deal were going to be better than the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA under Obama, which was hated by Trump. He didn't like that deal, so he left that deal back in his first term. But this was supposed to be better, and they were going to basically, like, I think, stop enriching uranium, supposedly, and the off-ramp was there. And I do think that the reason Iran agreed to that is because they had to take the threat seriously that, you know, we had, was it aircraft carriers that were parked right outside. But then, you know, we make the decision to go invade, and now Iran's fighting for their life.
Yeah.
So this, I don't know. It was kind of confusing to me why this even happened in the first place, because again, I always predicted that Trump would be reluctant to use force, at least force of this magnitude, because it's like predicting the sun's going to come up. Like, voters don't like war.
Right.
The approval for the war right now is already pretty low, and it's as high as it's ever going to be. It's just going to keep going down, because the more that they come out with new casualties, as well as energy prices, and this affecting the price of gasoline and price of whatever else, voters are going to get tired of this real quick and going into midterm elections now. So, I think, you know, wars are easy to start. They're not always easy, though, to kind of end.
Yeah.
So I just think this was a miscalculation, and I don't know. It doesn't seem like it was well thought out either, because the other thing, too, is like Trump comes out and says, like, NATO's a bunch of cowards. And
oh, can you help us?
I mean, I've been sympathetic before of like, like if you have NATO, it can't just be the US. You've got to get other countries to pull their weight. But this is like an awkward comment, because what has Trump been doing over the past year is just like tariffing all these nations, talking down to them, threatening them, and then goes and does this thing in Iran without telling them. Right. And then you act surprised when no one wants to come and support you. So it's like, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, I was going to call it a yellow shower, but, you know, that's, you know, I mean, my goodness, you know, the thing too is how do we, at this point, how does the U.S. get out of this situation? Because it's like you pull out now, you really haven't accomplished anything yet. They have a new kind of a new cleric that's going to be as radical as his father. You got an angry country. You like Kieran said, you have to have both. Not just Iran say that they're not going to do it, but now you have to get Israel to back off. And I don't think that. I think they just are. They got almost like this energy that they're going to just in their own way try to finish whatever objectives they have. So it's kind of like what's the off ramp? Can you think of any, Brendan?
No, the old off ramp is kind of gone now.
Yeah.
Because I do think the leverage has shifted toward Iran's favor for the time being, at least. Because what gives Iran an advantage is they don't necessarily need to win, but they just kind of have to outweight the United States. Because it's, like I said, it's pretty obvious to see. It's like American voters don't like war, so other leaders know this. And so all you got to do is just wait it out, stand your ground, and then.
Well, with Americans not liking war, since we we never afraid to make a prediction with limited knowledge, but what's the chance of the $200 billion for additional military spending? What's the chance of that getting approved?
I would just say too, before I answer that,
Yeah.
I believe, I could be wrong about this, but believe the amount of money that Biden gave Ukraine over the course of the entire Russian invasion of Ukraine, I think was like $180 billion, somewhere in that ballpark. So this would be more money. A lot of conservatives are critical of that money over the course of several years. This would be $200 billion in one appropriations bill.
On top of a record military budget to begin with.
Yeah, $1 trillion military budget, but the money always goes away and the Pentagon doesn't pass any audits. I guess to answer your question, chances it gets passed, I don't know. I think Rand Paul will vote against it in the Senate. He's not in favor of the war, but the Republicans do have enough of a margin of error in the Senate that I suspect it would get passed.
Yeah.
I'm guessing most Democrats will vote against it, but I could see a few Democrats feeling like they don't want to be against the troops.
Yeah.
So Fetterman, he might vote for. He voted to move Markwayne Mullen forward through the committee.
And Susan Collins will be concerned end up voting for it anyway.
Yeah, most likely to probably get through. And like I said, some Democrats don't want to feel like they're unpatriotic by voting against the troops. So it should be a pretty easy vote. I'd vote against it.
Yeah.
Because this is an appropriations bill, is this not vulnerable to the filibuster?
I believe that's the case, yes.
Okay. Yeah, then I would agree.
Yeah,
I think things are so polarized nowadays. But yeah, usually for these bills, it used to just be pro forma, and you'd ever want to get in the way of the troops.
Yeah.
Makes you look very unpatriotic. But now it's more so you want to stand up to Trump. So it'll be a very bipartisan vote, or opposite.
and that's
divide.
kind of like where that where the resistance may. If this had come a little later, that might there might be more cracks in the armor. But it's going to be a defining vote. It'll put everyone on record in terms of where they were, and and I don't know, maybe that we talked about polarization and how many seats are truly vulnerable, versus that they just assess that I'm a Republican in Alabama. That's pretty safe, regardless. So that may be a case. The one going back as far as exit strategy, thoughts? Do you think it seems that the only way to get out of this is to go and escalate. That the point was that Iran cannot be a nuclear threat. So if you don't get the uranium, they're always going to have the potential to return and try to create a bomb. So do you have to go and do that, or is it that you have to go and do some, I don't know what way to do a regime change, just to get somebody that could be a moderate voice. I mean, what are your thoughts in terms of where, as far as what options are what's the option most likely to be taken?
It seemed like that was the hope, was to get regime change.
Yeah, but that's
right. I mean, that's not an off ramp though, right? Because that's just Iran's just going to keep fighting that until the bitter end. I mean, short of that, hopefully you win more on the battlefield, maybe, and then you try to negotiate when you've got a little bit more leverage and try to get some sort of new deal. Which again, we already had that. Yeah. So I mean, essentially, I guess. You could only just hope for try to get some sort of complete verifiable disarmament is the word. Like try to get Iran to sign a deal that's going to commit that they're not only going to not develop nuclear weapons and enrich uranium, but also like bring in inspectors. But that's like a lot of demands to put on a country that, again, I think they have incentives to just keep fighting and wait till at least the midterms. So I don't know what the off-ramp is. I don't really know what the exit strategy is. And my concern is I don't know if the Trump administration knows exactly what the exit strategy is anymore. So,
yeah. Oh, Kieran?
Yeah, there's not a clear one. I think Trump will probably be smart enough to not put large-scale boots on the ground. Yeah. Maybe they'll try some operation to get the uranium. I'm not an expert on that at all, as I'm not an expert on a lot of things we're talking about, but it seems like it'd be very difficult. I don't know exactly what you need to get uranium, but it's probably going to take a bunch of troops, it seems. Yeah. How do you collect it? How do you collect it without the Iranians stopping you? I don't even know how, I have no clue how that would work, but it seems like it'd be a really huge task to go into a foreign country, to an adversary that's trying to shoot down your helicopters, it's going to try to kill the soldiers that land there to collect this. It seems like it'd be a huge obstacle. My guess would be at some point maybe Trump will just declare victory and leave. But the problem is he can do that, and then if Iran is still sending, missiles or drones or whatever at our bases, then it's not really, we're not really out of it, even if Trump says we're out of it.
Yeah,
he could do like the mission accomplished sign that Bush did.
Yeah.
And we're like fully.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing, just kind of jump off on a little mini editorial is that before Iran really took over, the Trump administration was trying to pivot to this affordability message, and and then all of a sudden we now are in a war that's costing $1 billion a day. And I remember back when I was an undergrad in Principles of Economics, Paul Samuelson, it was always the guns versus butter, and I remember reading about that. And literally, it came back to me in that, this is something that Make America Great and the platform, you could, people could be critical about it, but if you looked at what the best thing that could come out of that is that focused on trying to really make things great here in this country. And what are we doing? We're doing just the opposite. We're out there just creating conflict all over and spending all these resources that could go elsewhere in terms of helping Americans. So just the fact that you have $1 trillion military budget and then you still need another 200 million. Again, there's your guns, and all the while, you got, you don't have solutions for housing, healthcare, drug prices, just rents. The list goes, it's endless. And, it just is something that it just, to me, again, this like moral bankruptcy that's taken place here. So, I'll get off my soapbox, but it really is just, to me, that's if there's a political platform to go and go in for a Democrat, it's going to have to be something like this. That as far as real populism in terms of how this is going to really help real people rather than, the Epstein class or the billionaires that give you money to build a ballroom or the billionaires that, pay you X amount to get themselves pardons. I mean, the list goes on. So I feel better now. But that's kind of just kind of my final thoughts. Anything to wrap it up, guys?
Trump says that Cuba's next.
Yeah, and there you go.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna take Cuba. Trump's words.
Yeah. No, truly, I would too. I mean, that would be, which again, where are we that, in terms of, as far as, that's where everything's being, all the focus and not all the money, but just so much money, it gets devoted to all these, Cuba, and now we got to own Greenland, and now we have to whatever's next.
Yeah, I mean, this calendar year, Venezuela, and we sort of talked about invading Greenland and backed off of it. We attacked Iran, and maybe we'll attack Cuba by the end of the year.
Yeah.
At what point do people say the emperor has no clothes?
Yeah.
And they just,
Yeah.
how ridiculous
No, really,
is some of this stuff? Like,
okay, well, here we can end, it's, of course, expertise never gets in our way of making predictions. Okay, so just assuming that somehow a Democrat wave takes place at the midterms, is there any likelihood that there's an impeachment for Trump? Because I've heard that start to rumble. I don't buy it. I just think presidents are almost unimpeachable at this point. But
Well, it depends how big the wave is.
Yeah.
If the wave is pretty large, I would say there's a decent shot he'll be impeached.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say it's I don't know if I'd say it's above 50%, but I think there's a good chance he'd be impeached. I don't think it's unlikely.
Yeah.
And the Republicans talked about impeaching Biden a couple of years ago, and it was because we're so polarized that if you were to ask, this is a sign of polarization. If you went back to the 1980s and you asked Democrats, should Ronald Reagan be impeached? Very few of them would have said Ronald Reagan should be impeached. If you asked Republicans, should Obama be impeached? A lot of them would say he should have been impeached. Most Democrats thought Trump should have been impeached during his presidency. Most Republicans thought Biden should have been impeached during his term. And now we're back to Trump, and most Democrats think Trump should be impeached. That's a sign of polarization.
Yeah.
If the majority of the political party the president does not belong to thinks the president should be impeached and removed from office.
Yeah.
Polymarket. I just looked it up because I was curious. Polymarket has Trump's impeachment by the end of his term is 44%.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said. I said less than half, but probably still
there
a
you
good
go.
chance. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if I have much to add.
Yeah.
but,
Well,
it is kind of being used like a vote of no confidence nowadays. Just sort of, you
Yeah.
don't like the person, so
yeah, and
I don't
part of it
impeach.
with the impeachment for me is if the Iran war is continuing, through the end of the year, so now, and then that would just give more incentive for a big, a blue wave, if you will.
Mhm.
That could really, kind of set everything. It's like this is the person that got us into this whole quagmire, and we just have to, make a change, and so that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm thinking this would all go.
Things are trending towards a blue wave. We'll see what happens, but right now I think that is the way things are trending. You see a lot of these races that probably shouldn't be competitive, and they look like they're competitive in
Right.
the polling, and that could change. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But Democrats, I think, also have an advantage because of the kind of voter that votes Democratic today tends to be the person who shows up in the less well-known about elections,
Yeah.
like the midterm. So I would say with impeachment, though, from the Democratic perspective, I would not impeach Trump unless you had a real shot at conviction in the Senate. Otherwise, it's just all theater.
Yeah, then it's theater. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anything else? All
All
right.
good.
Well, good, Brandon. Good luck on your race.
Thank you,
Yeah,
yeah. Week from
You're,
now, yeah.
So, is it your casual 100-mile kind of? run, or is it something else?
Here we go again. It's 100 miles. Yep. Yep. So.
Yeah. Impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well, we can do a recap when I come back.
Yes,
for
indeed.
better or for worse. Yeah.
All right. Well, real good. Well, thank you all for listening and watching as the world turns or burns, So we will be back with you again with more political commentary and predictions, of course. Yeah. And maybe we'll have an on-camera apology from producer Jayson about my use of landman and oil prices. I think he realizes the error of his ways. So I'll let it go at that. Oh, indeed. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
This podcast is sponsored in part by Lyon College and KILT Studios. Thank you to Jonah Winter for the intro and outro music.